Okay, go ahead. Introduce yourself, who you help, and what you do, and how you help them.
Okay, so thanks for having me, Lori. I really appreciate the space. My name's Erin Currin. I am actually a coach, a podcaster, and an author. My podcast is called The Secret of My Success, Exploring What It Means to Live a Fulfilling Life. I talk with people about their stories of overcoming challenges, and we dive not only into the story, but into the tools or the resources that they use to create that breakthrough and the paradigm shift. And as a coach, I help people create those shifts in their own lives.
So, how did you get into doing that?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story. I've always been interested in philosophy from my late teens to early 20s. And I always seem to be drawn to like the Eastern philosophies and religions, Buddhism, Taoism, all of that sort of a thing. 25 years ago, I got introduced to a form of Japanese Buddhism called Nichiren Buddhism. So I've been chanting for over 25 years. And it was probably 5 or 6 years later that I was introduced to personal development. And the common thread there is both of those philosophies, if you will, are really about being the master of your own universe. Like your environment is a reflection of yourself. And so if you want to change your karma, if you want to shift that outcome, it's up to you. It's entirely up to you. There's no one that can hold you back if you really want to create that breakthrough for yourself. And so, as I started to explore those different kinds of ideas, I began to see that I have a way with speaking. I'm a really good public speaker. I've always been good at communicating. I love writing. So writing a book came super easy to me. And the podcast is just because there were a lot of times when I would be having breakfast or lunch or coffee with somebody and we would both say, "Wow, wouldn't it be cool if we could just record this conversation and share it with people?" So that's how the podcast got started.
That's an incredible story of how the podcast got started, just sharing these conversations.
Really?
Yeah, because for me, it was like I started it out as like a collaboration with another entrepreneur who's in networking, and he asked me questions and interviewed me. And then I don't know, I thought, well, maybe I should interview people on their networking journeys because that's one of those things where, like, I've seen the big gurus say, like, 200 friends that are gonna refer your business and promote your business, and but you have to get there first. You have to have people that you know that actually want to refer you and at least want to talk about what you do. So um, that's how I got started with interviewing people on their networking journeys. But that's like a great story.
That's awesome. It actually took me 10 years to figure that out because I started kind of like what you said. I started having conversations with entrepreneurs. Like my background is in accounting. And so I was always thinking I would go into the business side. I would work with people who wanted to start their companies and help them with the accounting and the management and all of the administrative aspects. And so I was talking with entrepreneurs about what it meant to be an entrepreneur. But I found that conversation really didn't excite me. And 3 years ago, a friend of mine who had a podcast of her own, she's one of those people we were in a coffee shop going, we should record this conversation. She's like, "Hey, why don't you come onto my podcast?" And that was what we did. We sat in the coffee shop and we just talked and recorded it. I was like, this is how easy it can be. So I think when you find your lane, it's really exciting and it makes it so much fun.
It definitely does that. How would you say your approach to podcasting is different than others who do it? Because I know there's a lot of people who interview people on different things. So how do you stand out?
My podcast is 100% unscripted. The only thing that is scripted is the first question. I even limit the amount of time that I talk with my guests before we go on because I don't want it to be one of those, did we say that before we hit record or after? And so several of the people who've been on my podcast are like, my best friend was one of the people who did me a solid and was one of my first guests. And she's like, this is like a therapy session. I had my chiropractor on and he was sharing his origin story for how he found chiropractic. And like you could tell the first 20 minutes is he's telling the story he always tells. And it's just like there's the cadence and the rhythm. And about 20 minutes in, I throw one of mine, well, I hear you saying this, and here's a quote from Einstein that I really enjoy. And he was like, I never thought of that. And the last 40 minutes of the conversation, it's a lot more natural. So I set myself apart for that reason. And also, I don't allow any kind of advertising or promotion on the podcast. I'm happy to share my guests' links in the notes, but it is a completely sales-free environment because the podcast is really dedicated to helping people find tools that they might not ordinarily discover. Because, the YouTube algorithms kind of help me find some of the stuff that I need in weird and mysterious ways. And so I put this out there as my gift to the universe.
Yeah, YouTube algorithms, I was having this conversation earlier. It's a little bit different than what you would think of like social media because it's more like a search engine rather than just social media. Because things stay around. It's not just like what's trending in the moment and be consistent and all of that stuff.
And it's also related to the Google searches that you make and the things that your phone picks up on you saying and what you're researching in AI. And so there are times when I found exactly what I needed in my feed and I didn't ask for it. So, or at least I don't think I consciously asked for it. Let's say that.
Yeah. So, how have you changed your networking strategy over time from when you were just starting with this till now?
I've been networking off and on for I want to say, well, since 2009. So gosh, it's been 15 years. Wow. Um, and it's changed a lot because at first it was all, listening to what people say, get as many business cards as you can and go out and, shake hands and kiss babies. And that's not my vibe, really. It was painful when I first started. And now I'm more along the lines of I know that I'm going to meet exactly who I need to meet. And so I go to events that I'm drawn to, that maybe I'm referred to, and I check out the kind of people that are there, the way they engage, and I see how comfortable I am, how it lands in my heart. And if I like it, I'll go back, and if I don't, I won't.
Yeah, there's definitely different stages on that networking journey because you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start by doing it. But as you do it, there's definitely a refinement process of like some of the things I did in the beginning, I don't do now. And there's certain things I've added, like, hey, I need to follow up to get the most out of networking events. So, um, there's a certain amount of trial and error, just like experimenting. And as you do more, you
Mhm.
can see, okay, this is working or this is not. But you have to
That's
start.
It's true. I got so annoyed with networking at first that my friend and I created an hour-long, it was a while ago, CD, a training course on how to network. And one of the things that we really talked about was volunteering. Go and do the things that you enjoy. Start meeting people that you connect with because when you naturally share, that's real networking. When you're building the connections person to person, you get so much farther because then people will actually be interested in what it is you do and what you have to offer. If I do a drive-by and just throw you my card, there are 100 different coaches at these events. Like, I am not going to stand out. But if I'm talking to you about the podcast or you're sharing with me about your yoga event or we're vibing or connecting on a certain level, you're much more likely to remember me or to know someone that I might want to meet.
Yeah, and I also think messaging goes into that too, because I learned like you got to have like a 30-second line that you can say at these events. So you're not saying I'm a life coach because, I've been to the events where that was like half the room. That's not how you stand out. So,
No,
mm,
no, that's absolutely very true. Yeah.
what would you say are the best ways to get the most out of networking?
Well, I think what you were mentioning earlier, follow up is really key because if I'm going to spend the money and the time and the effort in the first place and I meet somebody, I want to follow up as quickly as possible because if I wait too long, neither one of us is going to remember the other person or why we thought it would be a good idea for us to talk. Because in the moment, you feel this energy, this excitement, right? And I go, oh my gosh, Lori, she's just so amazing. I want to meet you for coffee. And then like a month goes by and I'm looking through my phone going, Lori. I remember meeting her, but I don't know why. We said, yeah, putting notes in your phone, writing notes on the business card if you actually exchange business cards, sending a text right away. Nowadays, for people who don't do the business card thing, one of the things that we do is, oh, hey, give me your phone number. I'll just put it in your phone right now. Text, hey, this is Erin Currin from the Working Women Win Leads group, and it was so great to meet you today. When are we going for coffee? That way, there's a pin in it. There's a date, there's a time, and there's a little bit of what we were connecting about. Those are some things that I find really helpful.
Yeah, because if you do forget about it, like especially if it's later, and I understand like why people sometimes get in the mentality of following up later. They're like, well, maybe I'll need to know that person like later on in my journey or whatever. So should I really take the time now to have that, connection point? But if you don't, they won't remember you like 3 years from now.
It's funny because as I'm finding new ways to network and to reach out to people, one of the projects that I took on last week, I have 1,200 numbers in my phone. And there are some people it's just a first name, and I didn't bother writing notes because remember, I've been networking for 15 years. And so I started leaving voicemails where I'm like, hey, I probably met you through networking or personal development or some other cool kind of a space. At the time, we thought it would be a good idea to exchange numbers. I didn't put a note in my phone, so I don't remember who you are. Please give me a call and tell me if you remember. Let's reconnect and see if there's still a connection there. If not, I'm just going to delete your number after 30 days. I actually got somebody who called me back and she was like, that was so original. Like, and she knew I was being authentic because, like, seriously, my name is in her phone as well. So that's a fun way to reach out when you do let those numbers or names go stale.
Yeah, and it's also good because, as you mentioned, clearing off the contact list of people who aren't going to contact you again. And if you
Yeah.
do meet them again, then you can just exchange the numbers again.
If the universe sends them my way, it will be in a way for me to be able to recognize them for sure.
Yeah, so I think that's a good point too. And especially like on Facebook, you're limited to the 5,000 friends. So you want people on there who you actually are connected with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Would you say you're more introverted or extroverted, and how does that affect the choices you make about networking?
I, I am an extroverted introvert. I am totally an introvert. I need my downtime, my alone time. I remember one time I went to Argentina with my ex-husband because that's where he's from. He was so excited to be seeing all of his friends, and he's an extrovert, and we were going from place to place to place to place. I didn't have a space of my own. So I remember we were in between parties, and we were walking through a park, and I was like, I have to sit down. Here's a bench. Just don't talk to me for 20 minutes. Leave me alone. Uh, I need that downtime, that away time. I love people. I'm great listening. If it's an interesting conversation, I might even talk. I'm better at listening, which is funny because I'm a speaker. But like that recharging space. Once I heard the definition of an introvert versus an extrovert, extroverts charge while they're with people, introverts charge when they're alone at home or their own safe space. Definitely an introvert.
Yeah, that downtime. I've actually realized when I'm around the right people, it charges me up. And that certain interactions can also be draining too. So it depends like who I'm around as well.
That's true. And it definitely, earlier I had mentioned when I go to an event, I'll feel the room. And if it feels really draining, I won't go back. Yeah, it's too much work because at that point, if I'm locked down, then I've got my little energy wall up. People are not going to come near me anyway. So I'm in pain. Other people are uncomfortable. Nobody's going to be getting anywhere. I'm not contributing much. But when I feel comfortable and I like the vibe and I like the flavor and I enjoy the space, I can be open and I always meet just the right people. So I think honoring that is key.
Yeah. But also getting comfortable being uncomfortable is part of the entrepreneur skill set. What helped
Yeah.
Yeah, what helped you get past that when things felt uncomfortable?
Friends, coaches, support network. Sometimes I have to make promises to people outside of myself and be reminded. Or I will set myself up for games. Like currently, I'm in a leadership training program. I'm not in it because of a deficit of knowledge. I'm in it for the accountability because every month there's a number, there's a target, there's a promise, there's something that I've committed to that has me strive. And so I stopped networking for several years because I didn't have to. Well, now that I'm back in this program, I'm back to networking again. And it was funny because I was talking with one of the people in the program the other day and I'm like, yeah, I'm really loving networking. And he's like, wait a minute. I thought you said you hated networking. And I'm like, well, that introvert part of me still freaks out a little bit before I walk out the door. But I know you're going to be calling me out if I don't go. And once I get there, I'm fine.
Yeah, I love how you said that accountability helps you.
Yeah, if there's no gravel on the icy road, the tires just spin. It and then we get frustrated with ourselves because we think there's something wrong with us. It's just the negative voices in your head that are basically trying to protect you from what could happen. And so you want to have a game that's bigger than your negative conversations.
Definitely. What have you found is the best way to balance networking with the other things you do in business and in life so that you're setting aside the right amount of time for it? Not too much, not too little.
It's a combination of things. One, the idea of big rocks. Have you heard about that, where you take the things that are most important to you and you plug them into your calendar first?
Yep.
Yeah, that's huge. And how I do that is with my Google Calendar. I used to do a paper calendar, but now I do a Google Calendar because with Google Calendar, you can color code things. And if I look at my week and it's not colorful enough, then I know I'm not balanced. Um, I'm still trying to figure out a way to manage the balance between, I found out 3 years ago that I'm ADHD, which explains a lot. Um, and so I have shiny object syndrome really bad. And I will run after what I'm interested in and forget about the things that are boring and repetitive. It's like, why? I could be over here playing. But the color blocking with the calendar helps keep me honest. And as I play with it, I like to do a review at the end of the week to get to see how much did I get accomplished? How did I feel during the week? Because I'm journaling every day. And what worked, what didn't. Without that review and that breakdown, no amount of planning is going to do any good.
Yeah, I have the same thing, a Google Calendar, and things are color coded by the types of events. So, yeah, it's really important to put things on your calendar like networking events. And I also, when I do that, I also put busy so people can't just book calls. There are so many other times they can book calls. It doesn't have to be that day that you have a networking event or that specific time. So it's like good.
I also limit times. One of the things that I found, it was like 5 or 6 years ago, is my morning is precious. I wake up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning, but I do not interact with a human being until at least 10 a.m. because that morning spot is for my meditation, for my walking, for breakfast, for showering, for getting all of that stuff done. And it puts me on such a square, even pace for the rest of the day. And so using something like Calendly or some other kind of a calendar blocking system where people can pick things, but limiting that time. And if somebody has a request outside of that window, I'm happy to accommodate, but it's something that we can both negotiate. If I'm just going to send you a link, then it's going to be a very limited window, which is where I allow more chaos in my day.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I don't start my days till 10 a.m. either for the same reason because I want to get the meditation in. I want to make sure I'm awake, if I need extra sleep, shower, all of that stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
People underestimate. Like, I used to be one of those people who could roll out of bed and run out the door. I can't do that now. If I even think about having less than an hour and a half to get out the door, I can't.
What are some of the benefits you have gotten out of networking and how has it helped your business?
Networking is one of the ways for people to meet face to face. It's like, as a coach, like you were pointing to earlier, everybody's like, oh, a coach is a coach is a coach. Absolutely not. For sure, no. You need to have a coach that vibes with your personality, somebody that fits the style of thinking that you prefer to engage in. There are some people think that the law of attraction is ridiculous. They would never engage with Buddhists. They don't think spiritually at all. They might not use profanity nearly as much as I do. And so like for someone to meet me face to face, they'll get a feel for my energy. I get a feel for their energy. And it's it's a pre-qualification process as much as it is a connection process. In a networking space, depending on the kind of networking, I prefer the networking where it's like a more consistent repeating leads group where you get to know people over and over and over so that you're developing a relationship. The drive-by networking just doesn't work for me. Happy hour networking, not so much because, the people who are just, they're handing out cards. Great. If that works for you, fantastic. For banking, for commodity style services, that might be great. An office cleaning crew, how much do you need to know? But when you're talking about something like life coaching, business coaching, when you're talking about someone who's going to be getting up in your business and really getting to know you personally, especially since the price tags tend to be a little bit on the higher end, then you want somebody to really connect and to get a sense. Otherwise, they're not going to be willing to spend the time, to spend the energy. It's like going to a therapist. Oh, just go a few times. And oh, you mean I have to go through the crying and explaining part over and over and over again until I find the right person? That sounds horrible. With coaching, it's not quite that bad. We don't do the therapy piece, but still, like, why am I going to waste the time and money? Then it just sounds annoying and I don't want to bother. But if we're having a great conversation, you really enjoy where we get, you take some of the stuff that you learn from our conversation, you apply it in your life, you come back a couple of weeks later and you're like, oh my God, Erin, that was amazing. I need more. Then the selling piece the volume tends to be turned down because it's a natural connection. So networking for me is a way for people to get to know me. That's why I do my podcast. That's why I go out and meet people. It's that touch. We're talking about trust. We're talking about relationships. And so, I believe in that kind of a power. Nobody's going to book me through my website. They're just not. They might go to my website and check me out after meeting me. There's only one coach I know she actually said she's a high paying executive coach. She landed a client through Yelp just because of the level that she's at. Like, I don't know many, she was even surprised by that.
Yeah, I've hired off of knowing people from like Facebook, from social media, versus like doing the SEO. I'm looking at a website. So,
Especially with AI nowadays. You don't know if the person that you're talking to actually wrote the articles that you've been reading or not. So a face-to-face conversation will tell you whether everything I say is BS or not. Like, do I sound like my articles sound? Or is it like everything online is nice, neat, curated, it's all pretty, the AI photos where every hair is in place and the makeup is always perfect and your boobs are just the right size. And it's like, yeah, no, that's not me.
yeah, but that's a lot of what you see, especially when you see like those curated like websites and everything. But if you're talking to a person like we are now live, then okay, this is how they really are, not just the polished persona.
There are a lot of people. I remember there was one person who wanted to be on the podcast. I met her through one of those find a guest, be a guest Facebook groups. I don't know if you're familiar with those. And so she reached out. We scheduled a 30-minute conversation. And in it, she was like, no, honey, I was successful coming out of the womb. My life is amazing. And I was like, okay. So what's your story? I don't have a story. Everything is just awesome. It was my faith in God and everything is beautiful and my life just works out and it's always been that way. I'm like, okay, you're not a fit for my podcast. No, your podcast is about success. I swear we're a fit. No, no, we're not. I like the crash and burn kind of stories. My book is called Hate Your Way to Happiness, Cultivating Self-Love Even When You Feel Like Shit. Because for me, I don't want to see the line of Ferraris and Lamborghinis in front of the garage. Like, okay, great, you're successful. That's nice. How do I see myself standing there? If I'm over here, a dumpster fire, I need a little help with the bridge. So I like to keep it real just for that reason. Otherwise, people are like, oh, Erin, she's so sweet and so quiet and so peaceful. And it's like, no, you've not met Erin. At first, yes. But, inside of conversation, like you say, we get things a little bit more revealed. But that's also why my podcast isn't scripted, because you never know where things are going to go.
Yeah. How did you get into this? Like, what were you before this podcasting and coaching? And how did you get from there to that? Because that question's been nagging at me this whole time.
Sure. I actually was in accounting for 35 years, corporate controller, never a CPA, because that wild part of me, while I really enjoyed the security of numbers and accounting, I also didn't want the grind of being like at that time Big Six in a company of like 8,000 people. I'd rather be in a company with like 200 people working directly with and for the owners, managing HR, managing IT, managing, the accounting department, maybe one or two employees up under me, hands in the inner workings of the company. Remember, there was like, as an accountant but not a CPA, I didn't do the tax returns either. I'll crunch your numbers all day long, but tax is not my bag. And I remember the CPA was sitting across from me one day while we were talking about the tax return, and I've got my little Buddha sitting in the corner, and I've got my fountain over here, and he's like, how come we're in the same field, but your office is so mellow and so zen, and it feels like a vacation when I come to visit you? And my life is so crazy. And I'm like, you are the partner of a very large accounting firm. I am the controller for a small manufacturing company. There's a world of difference between the two of us. So, yeah, accounting, because I'm really very left brain with that structure, but coaching and podcasting because I'm also very spiritual and right brained and woo woo. It's an interesting blend. I like to say that I'm a bridge between worlds, which is also why my favorite people to work with are professional and entrepreneurial women, whether they're in the professional world and they want to stay there, but they don't feel fulfilled, or they have some sort of a desire to become an entrepreneur, or they've just started on their entrepreneurial journey and maybe need a little guidance to reconcile those pieces of themselves. I understand both worlds. I love both worlds. I would never give up my accounting piece and that structured analytical side, but I also love the free form play of the podcast and the creation and the speaking and the teaching. That fills my heart in a different way.
So you still do the accounting stuff?
Not professionally right now. I actually left my job as the corporate controller. It's been almost 2 years ago now. Yeah. I still like do my own books. And if somebody needed help with accounting, I'd be happy to take a look at it. Some of the coaching clients that I work with might want to understand how their business could be better, and that's something I could help them with. I know enough about business that I understand not only the emotional, mental pain that you might be going through, but I also might be able to help you deal with some of the problems that you have and help you get around that. It's an interesting mix.
That's quite the story. What are your thoughts on tapping into your intuition and how do you use it when networking?
I rely on my intuition 1,000%. In fact, I wrapped up my job 2 years ago through a completely intuitive process. Um, the more I open up to that side, the better my life gets. Going into accounting was really for safety and security because I'm good with numbers, but it also really cut me off in a lot of ways. Um, as I let myself really open up and play, then I can hear opportunities and I can see how my life works better. You know, inside of the training program that I'm in for accountability, they have certain ways that they like to do things. And there are some times when I'm like, no, I'll find my own version of that, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not just going to call 50 random people and go, "Hey, do you want to hire me?" Like, no. It's when I'm networking, that's how I find people in a room. Like, I do some meditations with Joe Dispenza, and when I go to his events, there are like 1,500 to 2,000 people in a room. And everybody's like going around and meeting people and talk, 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 talk. I would rather meet a couple of highly connected people than to meet 30 people that I'm never going to talk to again. And so, as frustrating as it can be for an introvert to go and sit and feel alone in that chair and kind of wait for that person to come, the more locked up I am, the less likely I am to meet the people that I need to meet. But when I go into the room knowing that I'm going to get a ping, I'm going to sit next to the right person, it's going to be the perfect conversation, that's what unfolds. So in the networking, I just leverage that idea. I might meditate or chant or journal or pull a tarot card before I go to a networking event, get myself aligned in some way, listen to some great music on the way over, and give it up. And then when I get there, I meet the right people.
That's an amazing way to use your intuition when networking. I often find myself, like, before deciding between two conflicting events, pulling some tarot cards to figure out which one to go to. If I only do this if I don't already know which one is more aligned. Like if I have questions in my mind, that's when I pull the cards and I'm like, okay, this is the one. And then I don't question it. I just go and do.
That's a really key point. A lot of people feel like they don't have strong intuition because they second guess. It's kind of like if you go up to somebody and you go, "I'd really like your opinion on this." And when they go, "Well, my opinion is," and you go, "Why would you think that?" The next time you ask me, I'm not going to give you an honest answer. And your intuition is kind of the same way. If you keep ignoring your intuition or second guessing or doing the opposite of what your intuition is telling you, it's going to be harder to hear. So, yeah, I'm all for muscle testing and double checking and also taking a chance. Sometimes failing on purpose just to test that, usually in more smaller risk situations.
That's amazing how you're using your intuition. Any closing remarks or things that you want to add?
Um, I just think it's amazing that you blend this idea of networking and intuition and creating that kind of a space. And it's like when I saw you on Facebook, I saw you really opening up to that side. And that's why I was interested in following like your vibe and your feel and getting into that group. And a lot of people don't necessarily understand how those feather together, but not every situation, not every group, not every networking event is for everyone. If we try to be all things for all people, we're going to be nothing to anyone. What is it? If you believe in nothing, you'll fall for anything. So I'm a staunch advocate for understanding who you are and what's important to you because so many people are overwhelmed and so many people are exhausted and frustrated and uncomfortable precisely because they're not being honest with themselves about what sources and feeds them. And dialing into that intuition and really being honest with yourself and giving yourself permission to want what it is you really want in your heart of hearts, absolutely key to being successful in any kind of adventure.
Agreed. Well, I had just such an amazing conversation with you.
Thanks, me too. I've liked this.
It was fun.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I love what you're creating. Keep it up. It's a wonderful space.